listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 108. My name is Eric Lamour, aka No Sleeves McGee, and here are my co-hosts, Gary McCallum and Carl Kiesler. Good morning, gentlemen.
What's going on, Patrick and SpongeBob?
What's up, guys?
You can decide who's who, but I think we know, right, Carl?
Oh, yeah. Wink.
That's awesome. What's happening at your end of the world, Eric? You know, I really miss the days of when we started this podcast around noon, and you were usually drunk by then.
Yeah, when it was later. Yeah, at some point when we first started, it was like 7 a.m. for me, 4 a.m. for you, and then we switched to afternoons with Harrison. And yeah, I would drink. Bought some beer this weekend. It's been like 6 months, so I figured it was time. You know, holidays.
Since you bought beer,
yeah,
or had a beer,
both.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
Yeah,
that
I'm
is
a drinker. Although I had a big bottle of vodka and rum, so you know.
But I'm not a drinker.
You're not a big anything, mister. Mr. Little Fella.
Yeah, little guy. No, I can't hold it, so that's why. So yeah, hope you guys are well. I mean, it's starting to get cold up here. Rainy for Gary and a lot of rain for Carl too down in Florida. So
Yeah.
hope that season is about to end, right? The crazy season down there.
I hope so, man. It just keeps coming and coming. We're in like the Greek alphabet, I think, when hurricanes and tropical storms. It's nuts this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The show today. So still we're going to continue with our campaign series. And one of the things that we thought was good idea right now, I mean, we still got a couple more topics, but right now is taking notes. And, you know, when we first came up with that, I was thinking taking notes like in the middle of the game, you're the GM and someone names one of their friends, their character's friends, or you name a new NPC and, you know, you have to write it down and hopefully remember what it means at the end of the game. But then Carl sent me his notes, how he takes his notes. And I mean, you could basically publish his notes because it's all laid out in a PDF with trade dress and fonts and all that. It looks like a product and it's like 4 pages long and full sentences and very well done. And then I'm like, okay, so maybe notes means something else as well. You know, it can be notes before the game or after the game. Because, I mean, we'll talk about it. He's got like a recap in there and all kinds of things. So, yeah, I thought it'd be a good topic. Again, not particular to Savage Worlds, but maybe reading his notes, it's like a Savage Tale, basically. So I guess that's where we can make the connection there. But before we get into that, if you have suggestions for topics for the show, for the camping series or anything in general, really, just email us, thewildeye@gmail.com, and we'll see what we can do. So, let's do this. So, how can we tackle this? So, well, let's ask Gary. Gary, you take notes?
Yeah, nothing like Carl's notes. I don't even think you consider those notes. Those are like I don't know. Is there a way that you could combine the word art and notes together, like narts? Maybe they're narts,
Narts.
something like that. Because my notes look like I've taken a handicapped chick and stuffed a crayon up its ass and just let it roll around on a piece of paper. Like Carl's notes are like artwork compared to mine. Mine are absolutely horrible. Most of what I do, though, when I take notes all the time for all my stuff, like everything. Even though I play a lot of modules and stuff like that, like that's where most of my ideas come from, pre-published stuff, because I don't have time to think of it my own. I'll read it and I'll just take bullet point notes and write that all down, summarize it, because I just want the idea. Like, I don't want to run it the box text and do all of that stuff, although sometimes I do, because the box text is pretty good. But I'll just do bullet points, man. And I'll take notes before, during, and after, whether I'm a player or not. Notes all the time. I'm taking notes right now, Eric, to be honest with you.
You're taking screenshots of me saying stuff, right?
You can see both my hands, so you can guess what appendage that I'm writing notes with. Just
all right, let's stop it right there. That's too disturbing. So we just mentioned Carl's notes, artwork that could be sold at a gallery. So explain your thought process behind your notes. Why do you do it like that? Explain how you do it and what's in it. And
okay, so the notes they're talking about is from past ETU games. I've run the plot point like 3 times for 3 different groups, and they've changed over every game I've run this, every campaign I've run this, I've changed stuff. So it's not fully on Degrees of Horror, but it's close enough, So the first thing I would like to do on my notes, I don't take too much notes during the game. I'll write like an NPC name down, like you said, or something. But during the game, I'm fully into the game and I'm just playing. So when I do my notes, when I write my notes, it's usually a day or 2, maybe up to 3 days after the game, where I let it all sit in my head and see and remember what everybody has done and stuff. And I just start writing out. One of the first things I kind of do is a recap sometimes. So it just keeps it fresh in my mind, like what's going on with the game. So I'll just write like a really lengthy recap and just type it out. And on my notes, I like to keep like a header on the characters. You'll see on if Eric can probably share my notes or something. I'll have a section called characters, and I'll write every character out just so I have that fresh in my mind, because one of these games I was actually running at my job. They let us play role-playing games after hours, and we used one of the conference rooms, and we got okay from HR and everything, and whoever wanted to play can just jump in and play, because it was ETU, so it was very easy enough to have, a student pops in here. Okay, that student's gone, they don't want to play anymore or whatever. So it's a school, so things happen. So I like to keep like a header of what all the characters are. So it's just fresh in my mind on what they are. And I'll usually write out like the character name, and what their major was, and kind of like what their archetype is. Like I'll just boil it down to whatever they are, like for instance, one of them her name was Jezebel Macmeda. She's a freshman of a liberal arts major, and she was a cheerleader / ass kicker. That's what I wrote down, because she was a really good fighter. But yeah, I keep that in my head. And when I write the recap, I write that out. But then I'll write out maybe the loose ends, what I call loose ends. And this is what's great about Pinnacle and their products, is the savage tales that you get with the plot points and the one sheets. All that stuff is amazing, because you can tailor that stuff however you want it to for whatever player. And if they don't finish it, like say we're in the middle of a one sheet or something, and maybe they don't fully go and talk to the NPC that they're supposed to, that's fine. Just keep it, write it in your notes, like, or for later, you can always jump back on that later. But that's why I keep these lengthy notes, because there's so much. Pinnacle does have so much stuff, especially like for ETU, for instance. There's so many one sheets. There's so many Savage Tales. These notes keep me straight in my head on who's talking to what NPC for what Savage Tale, and I'll usually write out that NPC for that Savage Tale. I'll even highlight the Savage Tale or the one sheet. I'll write out the name of it, and I'll write out their, the NPC maybe they're talking to about it or whatever. But yeah, it just keeps me straight in the head. And when I write these out, I write them out and I do style it, graphically, because it helps me if I'm at the game and I have to reference that stuff. But once I kind of write it out, it's kind of in my head, it's already in my head. So I'm not really referencing too much on this paper, even though it's like 3 or 4 sheets sometimes. I might reference a paragraph here or there, but it's not too much where I'm just reading off of this, off of my notes and saying, okay, you're doing this and this and this. And I'm reading like the next step and stuff like that. It's just enough to like kind of organize it visually. I have a reference in front of me in case it pops up in the game. So,
okay. So what I understand from this is that I know that sometimes if I want to remember something, I'll just write it down and it will help me. Right. They call that photographic memory or something like that. It helps. So is that the main reason why you take such lengthy notes, is just to help you remember stuff, but you don't really look at them during the game?
Yeah, kind of. Exactly. Because once I got it down on the page and I've written stuff down, or I type stuff down and I print it out and I have it, it's locked in my head for the next game. I'm ready for the next game. Sometimes I'm even writing these notes like the day of the game. Like the game might be that night, and I'll write some stuff for the game that day. So it's not like this huge process where I'm like, okay, 3 days in, I'm writing all these things, but I'm done. No, it's like usually I'm thinking of stuff all like the week or two until the next game, whenever that next session is. I'm always thinking it. So it's like a working document to me all the way up until that day. But so once I do write that recap down, like what has happened, I can always reference it when I come back to those notes to write more stuff. Oh, this is a cool thing that could happen. I can introduce this NPC from this one sheet, or this NPC I made up. Let me type that down under Jezebel's section,
Gotcha.
So.
How many hours after each game would you say you spend on typing those notes down?
Gosh, I don't know. I've never really boiled it down. An hour,
2 hours?
It doesn't take too long.
No.
Yeah, maybe a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, something like that. Writing these notes here and there. Because I jump back, like I said, I jump back on it. And it's like a working document until the game. So
that's dedication. You're making me look like a real GM here.
Well, it's great. Well, it's great too when you have excellent players that are really into it and stuff. They're the ones that really keep me going doing this. Is if they get into their characters and stuff, and there might be 1 or 2 players that aren't into it as much, but there are those players that I have that are really they're fully in depth in this the ETU setting or whatever we're playing, and they're like all into it. And you can kind of tell on some of the notes, like, oh, they got a lot of stuff going on with them, because they're really. It makes it easier for me to figure out what to do for them, if they're the more they're into it. So
right, no, I get that. So yeah, Gary, you mentioned taking notes from a module and all that, and before the game. And I get that because that's kind of how I prepared for Whom the Whistle Blows when I ran the Deadlands campaign. I mean, the first 2 acts are basically very linear. Everything happens in sequence, and I put bullet points there. But then you get to the town, and depending on where they go in the town, different things happen. So now then I had to take notes for every building, like just one quick line for each building. This is what's going to happen if they get in there, because the module is like 30 something pages long, and I had it in front of me and flipping through that. I mean, that was, the players are waiting to see what happens, and you're like, oh, wait. And then you're flipping up, and then you read that section, and then you try to figure out. So you do that, but Carl is more about after the game. What does your notes look like after a session? What do you put in there?
Well, you do remember the chicken that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
That's essentially what my notes look like. Afterwards, I'll just write down, during, there's always the during phase that you don't want to skip. And I don't want to get into detail about it, but I'll jot down a person's name that we've come up with. And I'll just look at that at the end, be like, what does that guy do? Where was he at? And I'll just write a few little notes about him, what he looks like, what he sounds like. That's kind of an important one too. I'm horrible. I mean, I'm not bad at doing voices, but I'm horrible at doing the same voice for the same person every time. You'll meet Jack the blacksmith one time, he'll be an Irishman. The next time he's like, he's some other nationality. And the next time you meet him, do you know what I mean? And I'm like, hey, wait a second, even halfway through. So what I've started doing is saying to myself, okay, what is this guy? What does he sound like? What kind of a persona does he project when he comes at you? And then that gives me, a couple of quick ideas. I'll put down French sometimes, and then I'll do my Pepe Le Pew voice or something like that. But the afterwards part is a little more detailed, because when you do notes afterwards, you really want to sort of take the entire session and break it down into some key points, like the funny stuff that happens, the people that were met, where your next session is going to go from this point. That's key, because you want to keep that while it's fresh in your memory. You want to do this, like, what were some of the hooks that you threw out from and where did they come from? So yeah, I put those kind of notes in there too. I just knocked my table. Did you guys hear that? That was crappy kind of podcasting there. I even I hit the table so hard I saw my video shake. So yeah, there's my notes, and I'll write them anywhere. Squee. Thanks, pal. Yeah, what about you, Lamoureux? Do you do after? You only do one shot, so what kind of notes are you taking ever?
I'll do the notes before, definitely. Usually I try to fit everything onto one page, and I'll use bullet points. So it's easy to reference. Right now, the campaign that I'm running, we just ran the first session, Boomstick. I broke it down into 3 acts, and then bullet points for kind of each scene within the act. What's going on behind the scenes, the name of those characters, because most of my prep is all in my head. Like, I'll daydream for days or weeks about the next session and what's going to happen. But all these characters that are inside my head, these NPCs, they don't have a name. They're like, okay, that's the guy that comes in after the explosion. That's the name of the guy in my head. But for the game, for the players, I need to come up with a name. So that's where I'll put it. I'll put the name, things like that. Beats that I need to hit, remember and not skip. I'll do the same thing like I said earlier, for a module, the most important parts, and then I'll try to read it before the game just to make it fresh in my head. During the session, notes, mine are pretty cryptic. I'll spend maybe less than 8 words per line of what I'm taking notes of, a name. And sometimes I just write down a name, and then after the game, I don't remember who that guy is. So that's why I need pointers on taking better notes, because to me, the more time I spend away from giving the players attention, that's when they lose You kind of lose the players. That's when they'll start talking to each other, get on their phones and all that stuff. So I try to eliminate that as much as possible. But looking back, I'm thinking it kind of hurt me in the long term for a campaign, because I'll forget something that a player did that could be a great hook for the next game. And then I forget it, and maybe that player doesn't forget it, because, and even sometimes they'll come up and say, "Hey, what happened to this guy?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, that's right. I should have taken notes of that." Now they're wondering what's going on, and I lost an opportunity there. So maybe I need to take a bit more time during the game to take better notes. As far as after the game, I don't do that. And maybe I should, again, listening to you guys, but I'll spend my time preparing the next session instead of spending more time on that session. So, because it looks, I think I've heard someone say at some point, for each hour of play for a session, there should probably be around 3 hours of prep. And when you look at that, it's like 3 or 4 hours session. That's 9 to 12 hours prep total. That's plus the time you spend playing. So you're looking at, 12, 13, 17 hours a week, or every 2 weeks. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I switched to Savage Worlds, because it was easier on the prep. But now I'm looking back and maybe I need to work a bit harder.
Well, I can see.
You know what's the worst? Speaking of forgetting things, don't you hate it when you do that? Like, you're like, what happened to that player? I hate doing that in combat. They've rescued, somebody, or they're helping a dude out, and you get into combat and you forget to play that character, and he just sits there the whole time and does nothing. Excuse me. And then when it's over, your players are like, "Hey, what was he doing the whole time?" And you're like, "Oh." Oh man, that's the worst.
Yeah, I could see spending a lot of time like that. Like you said, like per hours per games time, of planning and stuff. But I can't see that doing that much in my notes, especially with Savage Worlds. That's what the whole point of Savage Worlds has: these Savage Tales and the one sheets and the plot points. Those are all like stuff that you can just get ideas from. You don't have to come up with. Of course, if you're running one of their products, they have all these things. You don't have to come up with tons of stuff for your characters to do, your players to do, because it's already written. It's already pre-written. You just have to plug in them when you want to. I always have a section at the end of my notes called Adventure Seeds, and basically these are the one sheets, the plot points, Savage Tales, wherever I want to put them, and I'll write out the name of it, and I'll say, okay, this is happening. This is a possibility. I lay a seed for this for next game. And it's not all like, okay, today we're playing the ETU Adventure Shock Jock. Let's go. No, it's like, treat it like a soap opera, ongoing story where it's more organic that way. If you just lay the seeds of like, for instance, the Shock Jock from ETU, if I remember right, that was a one sheet about a radio station, the school radio station. So you can lay a seed for that by saying, what's her name? There was a girl in the one sheet that she gets her show canceled from the radio station, and she's really mad about it. Okay, you could lay a seed for that by saying, by playing the radio show. You can just tell them, describe them, okay, the radio show's on here, and then you go to turn it on the next day and it's not there anymore. They say it's and word is that it's been canceled for some reason. That's like just a little piece of that one sheet coming into the game that can come up later. It doesn't have to be so just make it organic that way. That's the way I kind of set up my notes.
Yeah, I just find myself for this campaign needing to take more notes, because it's not so much about action scenes and combat. Yeah. It's very relationship driven. Because for session 0, I had the characters, the players, they'd have to. I would put out a statement like, and they'd have to pick one of the other players, well, their characters that it would fit with. So let's say one was, you used to consider this this band member as a rival, but now you're good friends. So they would pick another character, and then they would talk to that player and then come up with like a little story. And then they sent me all of that information. And now I have to use all that as, hooks and side quests and things like that. So I really need to get more organized compared to if I were to run, I don't know, a controlled environment, like a dungeon or something where, notes don't seem that important to me. But if the game is more about role play, you need to keep track of, the relationship. Last time they met that NPC, what happened? Is that NPC mad at them? Does that NPC want to thwart their plans now, or they're trying to become kind of a nemesis like Dan, or things like that? So, yeah,
bring it, Dan.
So yeah, pen or paper, digital or others. I know there's some tools out there like Obsidian Portal and things like that where you can really take notes in there and then even share them with your players. So the players, it's like a wiki that you could have a map and then a description for every location and all that. In my experience, spending time on that, the players don't even look at it. So,
I was just going to go on a rant, Lamoureux.
Yeah. Right. Pen and paper, I think for me, because I play online, I like taking notes on the pad better, because if you've ever played with someone who types during an online game, and doesn't mute themselves, it can be very, very annoying. The clickety click 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 click. So I'll just plus when I run online, I have dual monitor, but both of my monitors are taken by, one is Zoom and the other one is the VTT or my notes that I've taken before. So I don't really have room for anything else to type in. So I'll do that. Carl, obviously it's, work of art. Gary, it's chicken scratches on paper too. Like I said, mine, it's basically,
sometimes.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, sometimes I have to hire, like the Indiana Jones type architect, ancient languages guy to try and decipher what I wrote down just last week.
Yeah,
because it sometimes does remind me of hieroglyphics. It's horrible.
Yeah, mine are basically bullet points, key points, and usually cryptic at some point. Yeah. I rarely write full sentences. Well, during the game anyway. If it's before the game, I'll be more coherent and it'll make more sense. I
got to tell you, we were talking about writing notes or taking notes in the organizers that you can find online, some of the different campaign managers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go on a big rant, but I'm telling you, I feel the same way, buddy. They're absolutely, well, I don't want to say they're useless. They're useless to me and the people I play with because they never use them. Like they're cool in the sense that you can put in the town, you can put in the buildings, you can put in the person's name that runs the place, put an image of them. You can spend all of this time doing it. But if nobody goes there to check it out or add to it, that is just an extra step that you are taking that nobody accesses. I even went like the simplest way, which you can just take a Google Notes, because almost everybody has Google, and you can share it by email to all of your players and they can edit it and add notes to it. And it never happens. They never add anything to it. It doesn't, like, they'll go look at it to see if I've done anything, but nobody else adds notes.
Yeah, I've tried
the worst.
I've tried Obsidian Portal in the past when I first discovered it, and you're right. It's just everybody's busy, and I understand. They're not as fully in depth in the game sometimes as you are, because you're running the game, so you have to be. And sometimes people just want to show up and just play. And I say, hey, did you guys look at the entry? Nope. Let me look. And they pull out their laptops and stuff, and they're clicking on, like, no, this is not the time, but thanks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not.
See, this is why I hate players so much. Health.
Well, that's why some people just want to play, because they don't want to do all the work. They just, like Carl said, they just want to sit down and play. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But
No.
it's just
Agreed.
a warning to GMs that, don't put more time into prepping your game than you need to. Do it for yourself. Don't do it for the players, because they're not going to be as involved. But that brings me to the last topic I wanted to bring up, and it's about players taking notes. As a player, I've taken notes in the past. I don't anymore, because screw that. I'm the player now. I don't have to do the work, right?
You're the problem, Lamoureux. You're the problem.
So it's all you.
Yeah, it's all about me. But we had a player the last campaign for Deadlands, and he would take notes for everybody, and then the other players would read his notes, though. And we use Fantasy Grounds, and in Fantasy Grounds you can have notes in there, and everybody will be able to look at them in there. Of course, you can't look at them outside the game, but still, once you're in there, it would be helpful. And what I would do is that player would get an extra Benny every session just for being the designated note taker.
Yeah, that's the cool part about Fantasy Grounds too. You can pop it up. You can actually take public and private notes. I'm sure you can do the same thing in Roll20, but it's nice to have one area that everybody can publicly access and read everything. Like, you don't have to have 5 people all typing in the name of the NPC they just met. One person can do it, and you can say, okay, right. And if they forget to add a thing, you can type in, he's the sheriff of, Gumby Town or something like that. You can put that in there too, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, as a player, I take notes. I take damn good notes. I'm the Benny getting note taking guy, Lamoureux. I think it's mostly because I'm old and I have like a crappy memory, and I'm horrible with names. Like, I forgot Carl's name when the show started, to be honest. Just saying. That's not true, but it's literally that bad. I have a wicked visual memory. I'll tell you a stupid story. I haven't seen this kid since grade 3 elementary school in Cloverdale. He was the younger brother of a guy, Ricky, that I used to play with. And I saw him at Jacqueline, my sister-in-law's wedding 25 years later. Never seen the kid since. And I'm like, I know you. You're Ricky's younger brother. He's like, who are you? And I'm like, I went to school with Ricky 30 years ago, because I just really good with faces, horrible with names. I'm like, I don't know what your name is, but I know you. Be walking through, looking at people. I'm like, I know that person from somewhere. I just don't know where, and I don't know what their name is, so I never say anything about it. Anyways, I take notes all the time. Back on topic, just like that. Write them down. Yeah. People, places, things.
Too. He showed us his index card there.
Yeah.
We're not here to talk about how cool Carl's, what's your name's notes are over there.
What's his name? What's his face?
Shh. Carl with his fancy notes.
Well, these aren't fancy. If you see, it's like yours. It's chicken scratching. But what I do is I actually get index cards for when I'm a player, and I'll like write session, whatever the name of the session is, session 3 or whatever, and I'll just write notes of that session. And it's not extensive stuff. It might be a line here or NPC name here, but it's enough to jar my memory on what went on that session. Because I started in my games when I was running, because I'm not running any games right now. Whoever can do a recap gets a Benny, and I had one player, Candace, and she was amazing. And the reason, she's a copywriter in real life. She works with me, and she writes ads and stuff like that. So she's an excellent writer. And so her notes were like pages after pages of just intricate stuff that I'm like, oh, even I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that little part. And she would always get the Benny, which was amazing. That's cool with me. But yeah, I do take notes. Just little index cards are perfect for players, and you can just write session 3, a sentence here, an NPC name there. And
Lamoureux, why aren't you taking notes about how Carl takes notes as a player? This is where the problem starts, right here. Ground zero, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Ground zero.
I'm starting to feel like an intervention now.
We have no notes to the left of me. I'm in the middle with medium notes, bullet points. Keep it simple. Carl's got the fancy artwork on the right-hand side over here.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is all, I wouldn't say enlightening, but yeah, it makes me realize that maybe why some of my campaigns or longer campaigns lose steam is lack of note taking. And yeah, I promise I'll make an effort.
General overall interest, time.
No, I mean, like I said, it's just I was playing D&D, 3.5 4th edition, and
there's your problem right there.
The prep was so long, so terrible that when I moved to Savage Worlds and it was all liberating. It was like frolicking in the meadows and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
Free of stats.
Yeah, free of stats, free of challenge ratings and, encounter building like that. And then I guess maybe bad habits or got lazy and forgot that it was still important to still work on your campaign a little bit. It's not just going to be successful like that. You have to work at it, and taking notes is a big part of it.
So you're actually now trying to blame Savage Worlds for your shortcomings. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
I don't take notes anymore because it's all Savage Worlds' fault. I forgot how to write. Savage Worlds is so simple. I don't even remember how to pick up a pencil.
That's right. It's creating bad habits for the tabletop RPG community. We need to cancel Savage Worlds.
Right? It's all their fault. Cancel culture. Let's get on it.
See, when I was playing 3.0 and 3.5 and running those games, I didn't take anywhere near as many notes as I do now. I was just like winging it, like almost like every game, because like you said, like the prep for some of those games is like, oh my God, I got to build this creature and I don't want to do it. And I don't know, if somehow you felt obligated to write the CR rating and everything. It was just like, really, why am I doing all this? So once I got into Savage Worlds, it kind of freed me up. I'm like, oh, I can concentrate on other things like the story of the characters, like what they're doing, the NPCs they talk to, more, make these characters like more fleshed out, because there's so much richness in a Pinnacle product where it's, the three things, the plot point, Savage Tales, and one sheets, that there are tons of NPCs and things you could just introduce. Oh, it's amazing. It just opened my eyes up. I'm like, oh, this is great.
I agree. And I can't really blame time on it, because I'm the kind of guy that will spend 100 to 200 hours preparing a one shot for a convention, making terrain and props and painting minis and stuff. But when it comes to, taking a couple hours every week or every other week to writing notes, I just don't do it, but I need to.
Yeah.
Show topic. How much time should you spend as a GM? Prep time. That's part of the campaign. We could throw that in there as an episode.
Yep.
I don't really have much to say about it, but Carl, Fancy Pants Notes over here, sure probably has a whole lot to.
He probably has spreadsheets on it, and
right?
Calculating the efficiency of every minute spent on. No, just kidding.
You got a team of writers.
Yeah, a team of writers. That's what I have. Give me what you got, Jensen. What's the third plot of the second bullet point there?
Yeah, it looks like a newsroom in his house before a game.
I really just have a bunch of
6 o'clock deadline.
I just have a bunch of monkeys in a room somewhere, and that's what I just say. Hey, just write some stuff for me.
Smoking.
I feel like you have one of those little tiny earpieces that nobody can see, where people are like, pumping information into your ear.
Yeah.
You got a whole room off to the side, like a dark room with a red light. People are sitting in there typing away in the computer.
All right, let's wrap this up. All right, so good show, good info there, guys. Good discussion. Tuesday. Well, this episode should be coming out Tuesday, but Tuesday, November 17th, the Secret Files of Section D, the Kickstarter is going live for this pulp 30s pulp setting by Alan Rowe. He's been working on that for quite a while. The quick start is out for it. He's been sharing previews for a long time. I know a bunch of people are looking forward to this. So if you're listening, go give him a hand. It's he's got a bunch of very thorough adventures in there. If you're a fan of adventure modules, you're gonna like that because he's got maps for them too and everything. So might be something you want to look at, Gary.
Maybe. I'm already interested in it just by the name alone. Shout out to John Marlin, man. The Secret Files of Section D. Name of my sex tape, buddy. Section D.
I don't know why people don't. That.
I don't know why people don't think of this stuff. Like literally, if I ever put out a product, it would be the most mundane thing, like bread and butter, and that would be it.
Well, actually, Section D is something real. It used to exist, and it's also in Achtung Cthulhu. That's the branch of British intelligence that you're part of. So that's blame the Brits for coming up with that name.
Blame them. It's awesome. Section D is my favorite.
So yeah, let's go check it out, folks. Also, our next Wild Die Harder at the end of the month, November 27th. If you still can't wrap your head around chase scenes, how to run a chase, that's what we're going to do. We're going to run a chase live on Twitch, and we're going to go through every step. So if you need a visual example of it, there it is. Check us out. And finally, unless you've been living under a rock, Sprawlrunners by Manuel Sambs. It's taken the community by storm. It's already a gold seller, so already over 500 copies sold of this cyberpunk toolkit for Savage Worlds. So if you want to run cyberpunk in a fast, fun, furious way, and also, of course, if you think about the name Sprawlrunners SR, it's got a Shadowrun with serial numbers filed off. So if you want to run that, check it out.
Say what?
Yeah, if you want to run that. So congratulations to Manuel on the great success. If you remember Manuel, he used to be on the show here on the Wild Eye Podcast. He was one of the co-hosts. And I think it's safe to say that his success, we can attribute that to Gary, the influence of Gary on Manuel.
Okay.
Sure, he'll take it.
Yep, I'm taking that one. I blame his success is all my fault. That sounds wrong.
I thought you were gonna jump on that and run with it, but no, I guess you're modest today, huh?
No, I figure it's not my success. He's not successful because of me. He's successful because he's playing with his parents in the closet, remember?
Oh, yeah. That episode. Yeah.
Sorry, Manuel. I had to do it.
He'll take it. And also, Jan Jetmar, another one of our patrons, worked on that. He did the layout and all that, graphic design. So good job on that. It's a good looking product.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Yeah.
So congratulations, you two. And here's to, 500 more. Maybe the first swag product to hit platinum or even adamantine. What's it called? Adamantium, like in Marvel. So lots of copies. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another show. And before that, of course, it's going to be Wild Die Harder. So this is the only shout out to that. Check us out on Twitch, the Wild Eye on there. So
do you remember, Eric, do you remember what Manuel's podcast is? It's something in Whisky. Oh, I got my phone right in front of me. I should look at it. Oh, I know, because he's
Whiskies and Wildcards.
Something like that. Yeah, be sure to check that out. It's actually pretty funny. They do a little bit about Savage Worlds, and then they drink alcohol at the end of it, which I think we should do, but we don't for some reason because Eric's religious, I think.
What?
I don't know. Carry on.
Making stuff up. All right, so this is Eric saying, grab your sword by the balls.
Carl saying, do you want to Benny that?
And this is Gary saying, keep your pants on, keep it fun. Thanks, everybody. We're out.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Eye Podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our email address is thewildeye@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're the Wild Eye Podcast. And also on Twitch now for Wild Eye Harder. If you would like to help us keep this show going, look us up on Patreon at patreon.com/The Wild Eye. The Wild Eye Podcast would like to thank the following patrons: Rob Tower, Conrad Erasmus Neubert, Corey Judd, Emma Wakeland, Kevin Stanley, Terry Chalmers, Ray Rastia, Dan Brown, Jan Jetmar, Manuel Sambs, Mr. Stagg, Sylvia RPG Maps, Chris Grant, Robert Dorgan, Andy Hall, Brian Kaser, Daryl Catsier, Jens Conheim, Sid the Squid, the Digital Dungeon Master, Knuckle Dave Anderson, Tori Björtnus Pearson, O-Shift, and Eric. Thank you. We'll see you later.